Deadliest Warriors season finale continues live. Hi there, I'm Kieran Elliott and you are watching a very special live presentation of the Deadliest Warrior season finale. In case you're just tuning in, the Gurkhas have just defeated the French Foreign Legion and your votes were correct. You got it right. Very well done. Well, most of you did. Coming up, we'll see if you can predict the most controversial episode of the season, Vampires versus Zombies. And on that note, we are joined by renowned graphic novelist Steve Niles. Steve, welcome to the show.
All right, thanks for having me. Good to see everybody again.
Now, before we go any further, Mac, what do you think was it that turned the tide for the Gurkhas in this matchup?
Listen, when you're looking at Gurkha versus French Foreign Legion, these are two great warriors, fierce, highly skilled. It's those slight advantages, those little edges in the weapons that started falling the Gurkhas' way. And even when you're starting to talk about the physiology even with the Gurkhas, that fell their way as well. So it's just those slight advantages that turned the tide in that battle.
And that kukri, an amazing weapon as well. You had to see that. Moving on to you, Steve. What was your initial reaction when the producers asked you to do Vampires versus Zombies?
You know, it was positive right away because I've been having this argument since I was 5 years old anyway. I mean, I was a fan of comics and horror. You know, these are the arguments we have. Who's stronger, Hulk or Thor? Who's gonna, who's gonna beat zombies versus vampires? So this was a great format to actually maybe settle the argument.
Absolutely. It was great for us as well. It was great to see so many people involved and enjoying it. So thank you very much for being involved. And once again, Mag, Jeff and Armand will be tweeting throughout the night, so be sure to follow them. And don't forget to tweet your questions. Finally, stay tuned for the live aftermath coming up at 11 p.m. We have another very, very special guest and we'll visit Dr. Doreen's world in the ER where every day is a matter of life and death. All right, the hour upon us. Here is Deadliest Warrior, Vampires versus Zombies.
It started with two warriors resurrected from history. The tools of war were tested to determine who would win a battle to the death. Now, in an unprecedented television event, we're applying the groundbreaking scientific methods developed over 3 seasons to create a battle between two of the world's most feared legendary creatures. Vampires.
We're talking about a super killing machine, a thinking apex predator. Blood to a vampire is like super fuel, and that's what gives that vampire that superpower.
Versus zombies.
Essentially, a zombie acts exactly like a virus, which has no other purpose than the complete consumption and destruction of the entire human race.
A zombie feels no fear. It never gets discouraged. It will never stop.
These menacing monsters have each made a huge killing, racking up billions of dollars at the box office. Along with novels, comic books, and video games, the government Center for Disease Control has even published an emergency plan for a zombie apocalypse. Now, we'll combine our scientific analysis with vital information from an advisory panel of horror legends, including George Romero, to take on the ultimate battle of the undead.
So what excites me about being a scientist and an engineer is that I'm constantly working in the unknown. Working on this episode brings that excitement to a whole new level. I can apply my science to science fiction.
I joined SEAL Team to prove myself as a man, but underneath all of that is this geek and nerd who actually loves comic books, loves sci-fi and horror. So for me personally, I can't wait to see how this matchup goes.
When I first heard about the matchup, I honestly thought, I'm going to lose all credibility here. I'm a doctor. But they are grounded in science and biology. With regards to the animal kingdom, the vampire is the apex predator, while a zombie is fueled by a virus. The organism that's killed more people than all of the wars combined, all of the natural disasters combined. I'm really excited. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Vampires versus zombies. Who is deadliest? To find out, ancient legends and modern science collide as former Navy SEAL Richard Mac Makowitz dives deep into the fighting tactics of these mythical creatures. Biomedical engineer Jeff Desmoulins applies 21st century technology to unlock new data from beyond the ages. And ER physician Armand Dory dissects the trauma and reveals the physical and psychological traits of these infamous creatures. This groundbreaking data will be paired with revealing insights from an advisory panel at the biggest names in horror and entered into an all-new digital combat engine. Two bloodthirsty creatures will battle it out in a head-to-head death match, but only one will be crowned Deadliest Warrior. Welcome to the Fight Club, where, for this special edition of Deadliest Warrior, our experts will reveal the facts behind the fiction and help decide which legendary creature is deadliest. Vampires, blood-draining demons who kill to live and live to kill, or zombies, plague-infected ghouls with an insatiable hunger for human flesh.
Two of the most famous mythical creatures in a head-to-head battle to the death. Zombies versus vampire. This has never been done on television before, and I can't tell you how excited I am to be involved in this first. Now, they're mythical creatures. You might not think there's a lot of rules.
But there are a ton of rules, and let me first start this off by saying I'm a practicing emergency physician, okay? But I'm gonna take my medical license, put it aside, because this is really interesting.
Remember, this is Deadliest Warrior. We've got to look at strategy and tactics. We've got to look at all of those X factors we normally plug in to every single matchup.
Completely agreed, Mac. This episode obviously is going to present a few challenges when we're looking at test design. These warriors don't carry any weapons. Their bodies are the weapons. Also, typically we do man versus man, but in this particular matchup, it really comes down to the strength and speed of the vampire versus the sheer numbers of the zombies. So we need to pick a ratio that we can use in our sim to make this an even fight. So what we did was create an advisory panel. Directors, comic book writers, the people that created the legends behind zombies and vampires. So what we asked them to do was create a list of characteristics, capabilities, vulnerabilities, and I can't wait to put that list to the test.
Representing our advisory panel for the vampires, renowned graphic novelist Steve Niles, creator of 30 Days of Night, which became a major motion picture and helped redefine the vampire genre.
I pretty much dedicated my life to writing, horror and monsters. The romantic vampire started in Bram Stoker's version of the book, and then Bela Lugosi came along, turning the vampire into this sort of suave seducer. That's where vampires got stuck. When it came time for me to do 30 Days a Night, I just wanted to strip all that away. I looked at all the examples of vampires that I really enjoyed, like some of the Blade movies, where they were just treated as bad guys. What if they don't want to seduce you? What if we are just their food? And just that little twist makes them incredibly frightening.
Providing historical and scientific analysis of vampires, advisory panel member Scott Bowen, author of the cult classic, The Vampire's Survival Guide.
Vampires see us just strictly as energy. We're a resource. A vampire has a circulatory system that's kind of like a jet engine. When it drinks that blood, that engine goes on afterburner. A vampire's upwards of 6 times stronger than an elite athlete.
What kind of vampire are we actually dealing with, Steve?
The one we're talking about is the modern vampire. Fast, furious killers. One where a lot of supernatural superstitions have been taken away, like the garlic or the cross. They don't want to seduce you. These are killers and predators, and we are their prey. We've seen this in Blade, Trinity, Van Helsing, 30 Days of Night. This mouth full of fangs that can grip and rip.
All right, what are the strengths of a vampire?
First of all, superhuman strength. 6 times the strength of an elite athlete. And speed to match. On top of that, here's a creature with sight, hearing, smell on the level of a wolf or a tiger. It can sense its prey from a distance, close in very quickly. It can hear you when you're trying to hide.
You're talking about the ultimate predator, super strong, super fast, super senses. How do you kill this beast?
Cutting their head off. Their brain is one of their big tools, so you cut it off, they're dead. Probably the most important way to destroy them is get rid of their heart, rip it out. If they can't have that mechanism that distributes the blood, they're gone.
Sounds like a hell of a matchup for the zombies.
Representing the advisory panel for the zombies, one of the world's leading authorities, Max Brooks, author of 2 New York Times bestsellers, The Zombie Survival Guide and World War Z, a modern classic being adapted into another Hollywood blockbuster.
The initial zombie mythology goes back thousands of years. We're talking about the voodoo zombie, which is essentially a slave brought back from the dead by black magic. In 1968, George Romero completely changed the zombie mythology with Night of the Living Dead. For the first time, you had corpses hungry for human flesh and spreading across the world with a global pandemic. What the virus does is essentially kill a living human being, then reanimates it with no personality, no sense of former self, and creates what George Romero calls pure motorized instinct. When discussing a vampire-zombie matchup, numbers cannot be underestimated. The zombie horde has no other function other than to grow and expand and consume.
Unlocking zombie tactics and providing scientific insight. Advisory panel member Matt Moak, founder of the Zombie Research Society, whose members include leading neurobiologists and director George Romero.
When the modern zombie is reanimated, it's functioning at a relatively low level. The heart is not beating. The brain is controlling the body, moving the body through space in an attempt to find living humans to spread the infection. So it feels no fear. It never gets discouraged. It will never stop.
These threats are not predators. They are a plague. They don't hunt humans. They consume humanity.
Max, you mentioned plague. You've got my interest.
Zombies have one biological imperative. That is to spread the virus. And they do that through consuming human flesh.
What are the strengths of zombies?
It's the perfect warrior. It's ultimately brave, stronger than a human. It has no self-preservation mechanism that will destroy itself to get you.
How do you stop a zombie?
There is only one way to stop a zombie. Take out the brain, take out the threat.
Vampires or zombies? The supernatural apex predator versus the virus-carrying super beast. Before this classic showdown can begin, one critical question must be answered. Can the zombies virus infect vampires?
It's a virus, and they've dealt with this before. The vampires we know from literature have survived the bubonic plague. So if they survived that and everything since, I don't think the zombie virus is going to be a threat to their own health.
Zombieism is spread through bodily fluid contact, normally through a bite. Vampires typically fight in very close combat. The worst thing that the vampire can do is to get close to a zombie.
Doc, is there anything in the world that closely resembles in nature what a zombie virus might be like?
Actually, there is a recent example. It's called H1N1, otherwise known as the swine flu. What's interesting about the swine flu is the fact that it only infected pigs. But for the first time, it is able to mutate and infect humans. It was a cross-species virus. The potential of a zombie virus to infect a vampire, much like the swine flu virus, is there. Having said that, there also is the potential that the virus could not wipe out all the vampires. So the potential is real on both ends.
The winner of this first ever Battle of the Undead will be determined by the all-new digital combat engine, created by former Green Beret and military-based game designer Robert Daly. His latest high-tech creation will evaluate our test data, plus more than 100 different X factors, critical intangibles that are given numeric values based on the advisory panel's insight into each creature's mythologies, tactics, and biological profiles.
This isn't going to be a global war between vampires and zombies, is it?
Now, what we're going to do is that initial contact, that small battle with vampires and zombies meeting each other for the first time.
Yeah, but zombies are going to have a bigger number, right?
Yeah, you're right, Doc. So what we're going to do is figure out what the ratio of that is through our test data that you guys are collecting. Once we determine what that ratio is, we will plug that number into the sim, run our simulator 5,000 times, and we will end up with who is the deadliest undead warrior.
A single zombie is no match for a vampire's superhuman strength and speed. But zombies attack in a horde. To level the playing field in the digital combat engine, our experts must start by finding the critical ratio between the vampire's superior strength and speed and the zombie's superior numbers.
When we're talking about the speed of the modern vampire, we're talking at least 6 times the strength and the speed of an elite athlete.
Well, a zombie would never attack one-on-one. They come at you in a horde, starting from 2 zombies to 2,000 to 2 million, and if you live in China or India, 2 billion.
For this test, Jeff has created a ring of death with zombie targets that will close in on a vampire, represented by world champion speedboard breaker Leif Beckler. His only weapon, a set of killer vampire claws.
Now, to test the predatory strength of the vampire, what we've created is the Vampire Gauntlet. Now, each finger will have a carbon steel blade, razor sharpened, to show the ripping power of a vampire's hands against our moving targets.
Leif represents a vampire with 6 times his speed and strength. The 12 targets represents a 72 zombie horde. How many targets Leif kills before anyone can reach him will help determine a fair vampire to zombie ratio for the final battle.
They're going to start from about 20 to 30 feet out. They're going to move towards the center anywhere between 2 and 3 miles per hour. And what we're trying to come up with is a ratio that we can use in our sim to make this as even fight as possible. Good luck. On 3, 2, 1, zombies attack! Oh, cool, man. Nice!
They're right, they close to the circle.
And stop. That was freaking insane.
That was
nice work.
Leif destroyed 9 zombie targets before the remaining 3 were able to reach him.
What you did here is you literally went through the orbital fossa here, through the nose. You get that down through the cribriform plate, the softest part in the skull that goes right into that midbrain. This zombie is done.
Okay, you were able to kill 9 zombies, multiplying by 6, accounting for the vampire's additional strength and speed. That's 54 dead zombies.
The vampire killed 54 zombies out of the horde of 72. The average of those 2 numbers is 63. So to create the fairest fight possible, the final battle ratio will be 63 zombies to 1 vampire.
Leif, what was it like being in that circle with all those zombies coming after you? Did you ever feel overwhelmed?
Oh, I was. All of a sudden, I turn around, and there'd be another one right there in my face.
I know that a vampire is tough, but when you're talking about numbers, there's going to be a possibility of being intimidated in that space. And intimidation is going to be an X factor we put into the sim.
Well, one of the things that makes vampires what they are is they do feel emotion. So it is possible, but like everything else with them, accelerated strength, speed, they're superhuman. So I would imagine their threshold for fear and panic in a combat situation is much wider threshold than a normal person.
Mac, about fear. A vampire may not get scared. A zombie cannot get scared. They are biologically incapable of fear. They can bite, but they will never choke.
Coming up, the legends of these creatures' terrifying teeth are ripped to shreds. And later, it's a clash of the kill strikes as the feeding frenzy continues. Zombies, vampires, who is deadliest?
Dracula starts the tradition of a vampire having to use some of its blood to complete the transformation into a vampire. Get it started with a bite, reduce the human blood, and then fill that deficit with vampire blood. In Bram Stoker's novel Dracula in 1897, he creates this character, Count Dracula, that he bases on Vlad the Impaler, who was this Romanian leader in the 16th century. Vlad got his name because supposedly he liked to impale his slave labor force or his enemies.
When George Romero made the groundbreaking film Night of the Living Dead, he turned zombies from this passive, not dangerous slave to an autonomous, raving, cannibalistic monster that was seeking out human flesh to feed on. No one had ever seen anything like that before.
Our first test determined a ratio of 63 zombies to every 1 vampire for our final battle. Now we'll test the weapons these living dead warriors use when they close in for their kill. Their mouths. Zombies strike with an unrelenting combo of teeth and jaws. Flesh and bone pulverizers, much stronger than a living human's.
When we're talking about a zombie, we're talking about humanoid locusts. a literal swarm, a tornado of teeth.
The great thing about a zombie is that it's not going to withhold anything. So it will bite as hard as it possibly can within the human jaw structure to get at its prey.
You know, the jawbone is one of the strongest bones in the body. The masseter muscle is one of the strongest muscles in the human body. And you combine that with the fact that zombies don't have limitations. Pain does not limit their ability. The jaw potential can be much greater than in normal human beings. To get an uninhibited bite strength of a human, the best representation is the bite of a canine.
And we've got trainer OJ and his 100-pound Rottweiler Joey to help us out.
Before our experts can assess the damage of the zombie bite, Jeff will get a baseline bite force reading. Joey will chomp down on a load cell hidden inside an attack sleeve. Hit him.
Let him go. Yeah, 129. 165.
You see how the switch was thrown? You see how it suddenly became a weapon? That's how a zombie is all the time.
218. 255.
Wow.
Yeah, 255 is huge.
But is that 255-pound zombie bite enough to defeat a vampire? Just like humans, vampires lose strength from massive blood loss. Our team needs to determine how long it takes a zombie bite to bleed out a vampire to the point it can no longer fight off a zombie horde. Jeff combines the Rottweiler data with modern technology to accurately recreate a zombie bite.
This is our pneumatic actuated zombie teeth. We can dial this up to match our baseline measurement of 255 pounds. But can a zombie bite weaken a vampire to the point where the zombie horde can move in, tear open its chest, and destroy its heart?
The zombie is not conscious about where it's biting. We do know, though, that there's going to be a lot of zombies coming at it, so the vampire will be bitten everywhere, including the location with the quickest bleed out time, the soft neck, where you do have both the carotid and the two internal and external jugular vein.
We've got two tubes inside this neck to mimic the jugular vein and the carotid artery. So if this pneumatic actuator can lacerate those tubes, we start bleeding out.
The human body has 5 liters of blood. What's important there is the percentage loss of that blood. 3 liters down basically means incapacitation for this vampire.
And you'll see this bucket is only showing 4 liters, but that's because there's that liter of blood inside the tubes themselves. Max, you ready?
If you are.
Let's get started.
It's gonna get bloody.
3, 2, 1, jump away!
As soon as we start seeing blood loss, you're getting to that first zone of hypotension or exsanguination. With each chomp, you're increasing the damage to the vessel, increasing the diameter of spill. There we go. At this point, your heart rate will start getting faster to try to compensate for the blood loss. With that, you're gonna get cold and clammy. When you've got a hole that big with regards to your carotid and your jugular vein, it's game over unless you get to a surgeon like right now. 40% of the blood volume has been lost. We've got brain edema, poor cardiac output with regards to the heart, renal failure. This vampire is done.
2 minutes, 22 seconds.
Well done, Max.
Our zombie chomper was surprisingly effective, but I think the time of 2 minutes, 22 seconds to incapacitate the vampire might be a little long.
Imagine a dozen of those, all working together simultaneously to strip this thing down.
All right, Steve, what do you think?
That's 2.5 minutes of a struggling vampire fighting back, possibly with help. Just needs to get away from these things so it can feed.
Vampires are extremely well organized. They've got societal connections. If I see my vampire buddy getting chomped on by these zombies, I'm running over, I'm decapitating them, I'm busting their skulls, I'm grabbing my buddy, I'm getting them out.
Vampire blood is so important to its power that we can see with this blood loss, the vampire becomes a weakling, unable to defend itself.
When that zombie comes within range of that mouth, vampires bite back.
Coming up, when the apex predator attacks, can it deliver a zombie kill shot? And later, the world's most famous mythical creatures carve out a new chapter in warrior history. Vampires, zombies, who is deadliest?
Good Lord, that zombie chomper was absolutely gruesome. Jeff, how did you and the team go about designing that device?
Okay, well, there's no way that you can take a zombie chomp force off of a living human, so we had to turn to the canine world. But once we had that baseline reading force, I could work back in my calculations for each joint in that apparatus until I got to the force required for the push rod on the actuator. Having the cross-sectional area and dividing that by that force, that's the input pressure from the hose to the actuator. Done.
That easy. Steve, you know, with what you've seen so far, do you have any doubts on whether the vampires will prevail?
No doubts at all. I still think that, you know, vampires have the brain, and that gives them the advantage.
Not that you're biased in any way, shape, or form. Of course, of course. Well, let's ask the audience right now. Go to dwlive.spike.com and vote on who you think will come out on top. The results are pouring in as we speak, and it looks like zombies are ahead. I actually think that's quite surprising. Zombies is quite close, but zombies are ahead. Doc, do you have any thoughts on the poll results?
Yeah, I mean, one thing to say to the viewing public is never underestimate a virus. All of medicine today has still not been able to trump a virus, and we're seeing it play out here.
Steve, you know, obviously vampires, quick thinking, sentient beings. You know, do you think they're going to be able to trump a virus?
Well, that's a big if, isn't it? You know, my one thing with the vampires I always say is they've already survived, you know, the Black Plague to present, and, you know, it's also a really good thing to consider that they're dead.
Well, let's take another look and see how things are shaping up. Looking at the votes right now. Zombies are still ahead. Zombies doing very well. Stay tuned to see if you are on point. Now, vampires versus zombies is actually trending worldwide on Twitter right now. So don't forget to post your questions at warrior_den, #DWLive for our live aftermath, which is coming up at 11 p.m. Don't go anywhere and keep on Twitter.
The misconception about vampires is that they're only a solitary monster, but they work together as units. What I did in 30 Days a Night was I sort of had this plot where we see that they are capable of taking orders and there is a hierarchy and they can work as a group.
The zombie brain is devoid of its frontal lobe. There is no more fear, there is no more hesitation. The zombie has no self-preservation instinct. It will destroy itself to get to its prey. The body is nothing more than a vehicle. So taking out a part of that vehicle is not going to stop it. You have to go right for the source. Kill the brain.
In the first bite test of these two legendary monster combatants, we saw a zombie's chomp incapacitate a vampire. The vampire strikes back with its powerful serrated teeth. Jaws of death that cut like a chainsaw.
When people think of vampires, they always think of the 2 teeth. The logic behind that's a little hard to buy. You know, that a vampire could aim 2 teeth for a specific vein and hit every time.
If you look in the vampire universe about our thinking and how it's evolved about the vampire mouth, we've come to realize that this is an apex predator that would probably have a mouth full of these really sharp teeth. A lot of, you know, great examples: Blade, Trinity, Daybreakers, 30 Days a Night.
So now what you see more with the modern vampire are rows of sharp teeth. So what they can do now is take out the entire side of their victim's neck, which not only incapacitates them, but gives them access to all the blood they're going to need.
So you're telling us that the vampire is the apex predator, so its bite force is going to be at least as strong as the strongest known bite force in the animal kingdom, and that is the alligator.
The alligator matches almost perfectly what we're talking about with the multi-rows of teeth that the vampire has and the strength and the gripping power.
So we're going to bring in an alligator to get a baseline measurement of the vampire bite.
Oh, excellent.
Okay, Joe, thank you for bringing Ripper with you. On the longest pole we could find, we've got 2 blocks, and in between those blocks, a 5,000-pound load cell, so we'll get the bite force off this alligator. Be careful, brother.
Nice one. Beautiful.
Good solid bite there.
Wow. Wow. I got 1,723 pounds off that.
Using the load cell reading, Jeff will test how long it takes a vampire's bite to puncture a zombie's skull, destroy its brain, and kill it.
We're going to use the same pneumatic actuator that we did on the zombie bite test with slight adjustments. We swapped out the zombie teeth for vampire teeth.
When the vampire makes this bite on the zombie skull, it can unhinge its jaws, you know, make that bite radius wider if it has to, encompass that skull.
You know, that's interesting. It's much like a snake, where it can actually disarticulate or separate the 2 portions of its jaw in order to encompass prey larger than its size.
So we've got lever settings here to adjust for that. The third thing is We dialed up the actuator to match our baseline readings of 1,723 pounds that we got off the alligator. We've got a ballistics gel zombie set up here. We've got bone simulant, we've got brain simulant in there. So this is about as realistic as it gets.
Fantastic. Let's break some zombie skull.
The zombies' kill time to beat, 2 minutes, 22 seconds.
3, 2, 1, start chopping.
Okay, hold it. The blood supply of the brain is called the Circle of Willis, and Willis is dead.
2 bites in 5 seconds.
Okay, take a look at this. I mean, you went through the soft tissue, the Galeap aponeurosis, through the skull, through the frontal brain, right down to the core of the brain. This zombie is done.
In 2 bites.
For me, there are 3 clear X factors when I look at the result that you produced. First thing, brutality. Next thing we look at is intelligence, because this is an intelligent creature. And the last one, battlefield effectiveness. When you know what you're doing and what kind of results you want to produce on the battlefield, you can show up and deliver. These all will be plugged into the sim.
Remember, if you're being dogpiled by 12 zombies and you've managed to kill 1, the other 11 are still biting you.
But they can't target. This vampire is going for the brain to destroy it because it knows what the kill shot is.
Getting toxic zombie matter in your mouth, that's potentially toxic to the vampire. And we've already seen what the zombie bite does to the vampire in the last test.
1 major blood vessel, bleed out.
Coming up, the zombie horde's powerful flesh-ripping hands take on the vampire's multi-clawed kill strike. And later, in a Deadliest Warrior First, the world's most vicious and terrifying monsters collide in an all-out battle to the death. Vampires, zombies, who is deadliest?
A vampire, we have this super powerful creature that has so much force of impact behind its offensive bite. You also see this power translated into all the senses, sight, hearing, smell. You can feel vibrations and you can sense your prey moving around. This is a true predator from a biological basis.
People often think that a zombie decaying is a disadvantage, but to a certain extent that can be an advantage. As the fingers begin to decay, you will have sharpening of the digits. The zombie can take down a vampire, clawing at him at all areas of his body. Rip out its internal organs, access his heart, serious damage.
In the historic death match between these 2 mythical creatures, we've seen the zombie horde overwhelm a vampire. And proven why the vampire's razor-toothed bite is what legends are made of. The undead arsenals of both creatures include devastating close-range attacks within arm's reach. Zombies lash out with their ultra-powerful hands. Digits of death that maul through flesh like human meat grinders.
Can a group of zombies tear open the chest of a vampire, eventually destroying its heart?
We're talking about a weapon system that has no off switch.
And the great thing about that is that not only does it just go, it doesn't matter if it breaks its hands, if it shatters its knees, it will continue to go as strong as it can all the time.
You know, what's interesting is we are limited by our own brain's recognition of danger and knowing that we don't want to put our bodies in harm's way. That you can throw out the window when we're talking about the zombie.
Because of the brain's defense mechanisms, living humans only use a fraction of their strength. The zombie, 100% every time it attacks. The equivalent of a world-class strongman. To test how long it takes a group of zombies to rip out a vampire's heart using their hands, 3 strongmen will attack a ballistics gel torso, mimicking the density and viscosity of real human flesh and bone.
Now, zombies are not going to know enough to target a specific organ. They're looking at this as one giant homogeneous lunch.
How about if we do this then? In order to simulate that mindlessness, let's blindfold our strongmen so that when they come up here, the first thing they touch, that's what they'll be grabbing at, and they'll work their way in from there.
That might work.
On 3, 2, 1, rip them up!
Okay, they've gone through the soft tissue already. We got chest activity here. They are getting at the intestines. We've got a little bit of the pecs flying out here. All right, we're definitely into the intestines. They're being ripped out. We have not gotten through the chest cavity yet. Whoa! There's blood everywhere.
Yes.
So we're through the complete abdominal cavity, but the chest still remains intact. First rib done. Ribs are flying. All right, the right chest has been compromised. Most of the ribs are out. Lung is through. They've gotten past the right lung. Okay, the entire cage is open. And they've got the heart. They've got the heart.
Yes! 58 seconds.
The human body is constructed to withstand pressure, tension, and it did take them a while to actually fracture through the ribs. But as soon as they were able to get one, they were able to dig underneath, tear right through that heart. That's when the game was over.
Not only does a zombie never want to stop, a zombie never needs to stop.
You know, Matt, what you're bringing up is an X factor that we call endurance. That's definitely something that we can plug into the sim.
Well, for me, when I look at a combat situation, one of the X factors we've used all season is killer instinct. But with this particular matchup, it is feeding instinct. Both of these creatures have a feeding instinct, and both of them approach it very differently. That's going to be an X factor we put into the sim.
Don't forget, the vampire's never going to stop fighting. Until that heart is pulled out, the vampire would stand a decent chance of fighting him off.
Now it's the vampire's turn to strike back. Their target, a zombie brain. Their weapons, razor-sharp claws. Talons of terror that shred flesh into ribbons.
In order to kill a zombie, we know you gotta get at its brain. But to get at its brain, you gotta get through the skull.
This hand is like a medieval weapon. It's a mace. And you gotta remember, a well-fed vampire in good health is about 6 times the strength of a good athlete. It's like the elite athlete had an offspring of the wolf or a panther.
By taking a baseline reading from a nationally ranked strongman, then multiplying it by 6, Jeff can replicate the strength of a vampire's claw strike.
What we've got here, TechScan pressure mat. Underneath it, ballistics gel. So this will give us a baseline reading of the vampire, okay? Then we'll multiply those numbers by 6 and input it to our pneumatic vampire arm. On your go, strike it as hard as you can. Nice. 1,470 pounds. Most heavyweight boxers don't punch that hard. So multiplying that by 6, 8,820 pounds, that's the number we'll plug into our pneumatic vampire arm. Nice work.
The zombie team ripped out the vampire's heart in 58 seconds. Can the vampire claw destroy a zombie brain in less time?
1, let's clash!
Oh. Okay, let's check this out. No pun intended, but this vampire's claw nailed it. Straight through the skull, right into the brain. Take a look. These are the huge lacerations going down to the core part of that brain. It's lights out with just this one strike. That's insta-kill for a zombie.
When you think about a sniper, it's one shot, one kill. With a vampire, it's definitely one strike, one kill.
I couldn't be happier. The biggest problem with zombies is you're going to get a crowd around you, so they need to get that fast kill. This proves they can do it.
I think it's great. You managed to kill one zombie.
In 1 second.
An experienced and healthy vampire can just do this again and again and again, moving full speed, just tap, 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 moving through a group of zombies.
You essentially just burst a toxic water balloon. You're sort of spreading the zombie plague all over the place. The zombie's goal is to spread itself, and you just did it.
From a medical standpoint, the potential of a virus infecting any species is always there. It's just a matter of mutation. Having said that, the trauma here is real. This is definitely an instant zombie kill.
Coming up, the vampire's superhuman skills face off against a zombie horde's feeding frenzy in an unprecedented undead battle to the death. Who will be the deadliest warrior?
Wow. An instant zombie kill from a pneumatic vampire claw. That's got to be a first. Another first for Deadliest Warrior. This is the matchup the fans have been waiting for, and that's why this show is trending worldwide on Twitter right now. So keep those questions coming in. We've reset the live polls on dwlive.spike.com, so vote again right now. Let's have a look at those polls. There we go. As you can see, it's actually very, very, very close indeed. In fact, exactly 50-50. That can't be closer. Wow. Mike, do you have any hints on what to look for in the final battle?
Well, guys, we all know this matchup is all about making the other guy more dead, okay? So I got a feeling strategy and tactics are going to play a role.
Absolutely. Let's take one last look, see if that has changed. Remember, we've got hundreds of thousands of votes coming in. It's still very, very close indeed. Well, after the break, we'll be back with another special Aftermath Live. Don't go anywhere. And we've got another great guest for you.
How does brutality factor in?
The vampires are brutal killers, but the zombies take the cake. They will do anything to feed. So we rated the zombies in 96. We rated the vampires in 88.
Vampires versus zombies. Across the ages and beyond the grave, these ferocious monster warriors are rewriting history and adding new chapters to their bloody legacies. Our team of specialists has tested and analyzed the weapons these living dead killers brought to this showdown. Final test data has been turned over to Robert Daly and entered into the digital combat engine, which ultimately determines the winner. His team of engineers has also consulted with the advisory panel and assigned numeric values to more than 100 X factors.
There's all of these intangibles that really make the difference when you go out on the battlefield. And those include things like intelligence and feeding instinct. We then rate them on a scale of 1 to 100, with 100 being the ultimate warrior.
Okay, Rob, for me, it's all about intelligence. You got the zombie that's literally living on his midbrain. You got the vampire, been around for centuries, stealthy, intelligent. It's got to play huge in our sense.
You know, absolutely. And on the vampire side, intelligence is off the charts. And we rated him a 93 to the zombies 9.
Robert, both these creatures have to feed. How are you going to rate feeding instinct?
When you look at it, zombies are feeding because they're programmed to feed, to constantly spread this virus. On the flip side, you have vampires, and what they are doing is feeding to survive. So we rated them, the zombie, an 88 versus the vampire's 82.
What about the X factor of endurance? The vampire can actually tire, as opposed to the zombie that just doesn't quit. It keeps going and going and going until literally its body decays and flesh starts falling off.
When you're looking at endurance, we had to go with the highest rating we possibly could with the zombie. And we rated the zombie 100 because they are just non-stop machines. On the flip side, you have the vampire, who's extremely fit, well-conditioned. He does have superhuman endurance, but we only rated him an 87.
We've entered the weapons data. We've assigned values to all of our X factors. Let's head to the sim.
Using the zombie-vampire ratio of 63 to 1 established in the Ring of Death test, the digital combat engine will simulate 5,000 battles of the undead.
So the vampires ended up taking it 2,541 versus the zombies 2,459. It was a lot closer than I thought it would be. The zombies played to their strength of having numbers, but the fact that the vampires' claws could kill so swiftly swung the battles in their favor.
The zombies had an advantage in the majority of X Factors, but the vampires dominated with their superhuman weapons, especially their claws, which accounted for almost half of the simulation's total kills.
With the vampire, it's stronger than a human. It's faster than a human. It's got the ability to regenerate. There's a reason why they're the apex predator.
You can't lose sight of the fact that they are intelligent. They have strategy and tactics. You're talking about a creature that could have centuries, even millennia of battlefield experience.
The vampire is an unbelievable warrior. I was blown away with all of its characteristics. Having said that, no matter how apex of a predator you are, that virus will always be a danger for the vampire.
And vampires win by the skin of their teeth, literally. Full post-show analysis and founder of the Zombie Research Society, Matt Moak, is here. The aftermath starts in just a few seconds, so stick around.